we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, everybody. I'm Tommy, and you are on the lifeboat. So, I thank everybody for popping in, and I want to thank everybody that weighed in on yesterday's show, pro or against. I appreciate everybody that had something to say about it. And you know what? If you say something and you do it, you can debate people. You can take a different side, and if you do it with respect, it's amazing how well things go. There are a lot of people on this planet, I think, that may have missed, that if you're really young, I don't think that maybe you never lived at a time where people could actually come down on 2 different sides of an issue and not curse and scream and act like idiots and call each other names or whatever. It's a very unusual world that we live in these days. But as far as regrets, this is an odd subject. And you would think that we have tackled this before on the lifeboat. I mean, just from a logical standpoint, in 800 and I don't know anymore, 810, something like that. In 810 shows, you would think this has come up. But I honestly can't remember ever tackling this subject. And I think that may be because regret sometimes, especially in respect to recovery, it probably gets lumped in with other things like guilt. But I think that there's a pretty big difference between guilt and regret. And I think it's worth speaking. First of all, speaking to, I should say. And I need to apologize. It is so hard to keep my eyes open with the lighting the way that this is. And I realize that I'm squinting something fierce, but when I open my eyes wide, everything just sort of whites out. Wharton, it is very good to see you, my friend. You know what? I owe Wharton an apology. True story. Wharton had a comment that he put up about 3 or 4 shows ago, and I didn't see the comment while I was live. And the way that the YouTube does what it does, I can't go back. Like if I leave it open that night, then I can scroll back and I can usually go all the way through all of the messages. And I try to do that every day. However, my furry friend in the basket literally stood on top of the keyboard that day. And first of all, short-circuited anything I was trying to do, like hit, I'm not a computer guy. So she hit buttons like control and, all of these different things that do something to the whole setup. And I mean, it's taken days just to get it back to normal, but I didn't see the comment until the following day when I went back to go through all of the comments that people left. And I really felt bad. about it. It was one of those things that I regret. I regret not seeing that comment when you put it up because it's, perfect example of regret. Honestly, I really do regret it. It was talking about how Wharton's sober and has been for a while, and somebody in his life is not. And for that reason, it makes life tough. And Wharton said that he has given up just about every friend he has because of that. And that's something that really should have been addressed. And I regret that. I really do. And I would like to probably address it one-on-one, Wharton. So I don't want to put you on the spot and do this back and forth because it will be 30 or 40 seconds. The stuff that you're hearing right now, I said a long time ago, a really long time ago. So I will reach out to you, Wharton. And I'm pretty sure that I have your email. If I don't, shoot it to me, please, at sober@myyahoo.com. So the difference between regret and guilt from an emotional standpoint, obviously it doesn't take a whole lot to realize that there's a big difference between guilt and regret. A lot of times they are related and they can go hand in hand. And very often things that we feel guilty about, we also regret doing or regret saying, but it's not always the case. You can regret things that you have absolutely no guilt over. I'm thinking of opportunities, job opportunities, and things like that over the course of my life that I opted not to get involved in, or I turned down a job, whatever the case may be. And looking back on it, man, I regret that decision. I don't feel any guilt from it. It's really two completely different things. However, more often than not, the things that we regret are tied to the emotion of guilt. I'm a pretty big fan of trying to separate the two. I really am. And the reason is there's some complexity between the two emotions. When someone is feeling guilty, it is pretty easy to say, you know what? Let's be honest. Nobody in their right mind, fill in the rest of that sentence, right? Nobody in their right mind does that to the person that they love. Nobody in their right mind, blah, 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 right? And for that reason, hey, Joseph Burbo, good to see you. Glad that you're here. For that reason, hold on. When you look at guilt and you say that nobody in their right mind does something like rob a bank, lie to the people that they love, anything that you did while on your substance of choice, previous substance of choice. It's one of those things that I don't say you get a get out of jail free pass. And I've said this many times on the boat, right? Because I absolutely blame the things that I've done on heroin. And I got every reason to, because that substance takes over. That substance literally hip checks you out of the driver's seat and then takes control. And the things that happen from that point on, you have very little control over, truthfully, especially when really deep in it, right? That said, that doesn't mean that you're still not going to regret them. And regret is an emotion that lives on a very, very different plane. I have no problem at all. As I said, I can almost wipe the slate clean in terms of feeling guilty. I really can. The only times that I struggle with guilt is when its cousin, regret, starts to work its way in. When I look back at time wasted, I start to regret. And then when I start to regret, I drudge up stuff that I've already worked my way through. A long time ago, I worked my way through a lot of this. If you've spent a couple of years in sobriety, chances are you tried to get to the root cause of the things that made you use in the first place. So you go over things like when you really should have been a better husband, or you really should have been a better father, or a better son, or a better brother, or a better friend. The times that you didn't live up to the things that you should have done, or you broke your word, or you broke your promise. And you can say, you know what? I can put all of that on the drug. But then you start thinking, what would have happened if I didn't put all of that on the drug? Where would I be today if that stuff never took the wheel? If I had managed to say no the first time that I was offered any kind of drugs, where would I be today? That is a rabbit hole that is dangerous as hell to go down. And in my humble opinion, and as I've said a million times, people, you don't have to take my word for anything. The purpose of me sitting here is to make you think so that you can have conversations with people in the chat, get to know one another, and lean on each other as a way to help stay sober. The connection that we all have here. Make sense? But in my humble opinion, when you feel yourself starting to slide down that rabbit hole, I would treat that like it's more serious than it is. In other words, if in the next 30 minutes you had a thought like, I'm going to go buy a fifth of booze and I'm just going to get looped, that's a pretty serious automatic negative thought, right? That's a dangerous one. So you go into the bag of tricks and you start doing the all the way down. You start looking at, why am I feeling this way? What's the emotion? All right, I got to get out of this room. I need to reach out to somebody. Okay. I would treat going down the rabbit hole of regret the same way. I would treat it like a thought that says, I want to get high. Because if you don't jump on that with both feet and try to get that thought out of your head, it's going to lead you to places that you do not need to be as somebody in recovery. For real. Now, there are other organizations and there are other modes of sobriety, other modes of gaining sobriety, modalities maybe, that preach a very, very different concept. In fact, they would like you to really dig deep into your regret. I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't. Things that we have absolutely no ability to change. We need to own the things that we've done. We don't, however, need to fantasize about the life that we would have lived had we not done the things that we've done. That's dangerous. It really is. That kind of regret can make you come apart at the seams. It can make you start sliding into a place that, if you don't get it stopped, will lead you into relapse. And I don't mean you're going to get loaded today. If this thing happens on a Tuesday, it doesn't mean you're going to get loaded on Tuesday. You might not get loaded for a month or 2 months, but it will start the process. And you'll regret it in the long run, right? That will be a regret. But it does. It starts the process. So I would say, hey, Scoobs, I would say that if you start down that, it's, hold on a second. Get on making it stop. You know what? There's a lot of, there are people, Joseph. First of all, there are people on the boat. If you look at the number of views that we get on a good one, if we get a good video that I didn't stomp all over the algorithm on, we get 500, 700 views. In there are going to be a lot of people who are in the early stages of sobriety. There are also going to be people that, for whom sobriety is completely different. I work with people every single day, and there's never been two that were alike. I mean, not exactly. Everybody has, sort of different things that are unique to them and their recovery. And very often, when you start going down that rabbit hole, the danger is going to be different for every person. Some people didn't miss out on much. You understand what I mean? I mean, if you start looking back at regret and, I don't know, the individual, let's say you had a shot at being, having a starring role in a film. You just got to show up on Monday and film this thing. Brad Pitt's in it, a couple of other really big name actors, and you got an opportunity to be on Easy Street. This film's going to pay you double-digit millions, and for the rest of your life, you pretty much are on Easy Street. And a decent chance you will work again, because that's kind of how that entire industry works. But when you're supposed to show up on Monday morning, you don't have any dope. So you drive into a different part of LA to cop, only it doesn't go well. So you keep hunting. And by the time you get your dope and you get well and cruise on back to the set, there's 4.5 hours of a film crew out there waiting for you. 4.5 hours of a film crew, about 150 grand, maybe a little bit more, down the tubes. And a director that says, bye-bye. No way. This is how we start. Not going to happen. We'll find somebody else. God knows how many times this is going to happen. This dude's on drugs. I don't have anything to do with him. That would be a situation that will put some regret into someone's life, that even when they get sober and they work through the guilt of the things that they've done, that one is going to park in your subconscious. And every once in a while, it's going to throw some elbows. Believe that. Hey, ZW, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That thing's going to start throwing some elbows. And it's going to make you uncomfortable in your own skin. It's going to make you sit there and think, man, I absolutely blew it. I had life right where I wanted it. Man, if it wasn't for that drug, and that is a process that can hit you at 15 years sober. Now, not everybody's got one of those. Not everyone has one of those things that is just so epic that you really need to work and not going there. But there are people that have 10 of them. I promise you. There are people that have so many of those that so many times their substance of choice, they were this close to the finish line. And then the dope short-circuited them. And many, many people are terrified of success. They don't realize this until they start to really, peel the onion. But very often you'll see people who, when they get close to the finish line, will short-circuit it. They will subconsciously torpedo their own ship because they just don't know how to win. They don't know how to win. And I know that sounds ridiculous. And if you're looking in from the outside and you've never had a habit that you needed to do every day, it's probably a concept that makes absolutely no sense. But I always equate it or bring it back to people that gamble. I've worked with gamblers, and although there are a bazillion different stories, they may not gamble the same way. It may not be machines, it may not even be a casino, but it's always the same thing in that it doesn't matter how much they win. They're going to sit there until they give it all back. Across the board. I've never met anybody that was different than that. They will continue to spend until it is all gone. And when you really start to look at it and you really start to peel that back, what it translates to is that person's brain is comfortable in one setting. And that's being broke, not knowing what the hell just happened. How did they blow all of that money? And that kind of pitying yourself after you blow everything becomes something that is the baseline then for that individual. So if they hit 120 grand on the first pull on a slot machine, they're not walking out of that casino. Now, they might walk out, high five their friends, say, I am never going back there. I watched this happen to a woman in this town. And if my brother is watching, this woman's name was Judy. They used to call her Jumpin' Judy. Photographer, thank you, my friend. Jumpin' Judy hit a 4-card Keno on a 6 spot and hit it on every card. So it was like $60,000. All right. And instead of getting up and walking away, which probably would have been a pretty good idea, as they were waiting for her payout, because there's a process and there's papers that you need to figure out, she started playing on the machine next to her, right? Literally started playing on the machine next to her and hit a $40,000 payout. Now she and her husband are up 100 grand, and instantly Judy does what Judy does. First of all, she said, I'm walking out of here. This is the one time that they're not getting me. They are not taking this money back. And she was vicious about it. Literally walked out of the building, left the casino, started walking down the road. Not doing this to myself. The next day, she decided to go back just to play a little. And she only did a little, truthfully. Lost about $4,000. And then went to a used car dealership and bought a Corvette, used one, like a 70 something. And it was not perfect. It was a nice car though. And then the wheels come off. Then she drives her new car to the casino and just starts pumping $100 bills into that machine, one right after the other. And then sold the car for about $6,000 less than she paid for it within 2 weeks. Because that's the baseline. The brain is comfortable knowing one thing and one thing only. And it's the same thing if you're on blow. Your brain is comfortable in one position. So if you stop doing that position, it's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you really uncomfortable. So it's a hard thing to wrap your brain around. You think about gamblers and you say, no, they're not there to lose. They're addicted to the chance of winning. No, they're not. They're not. It's not what it is. Some might tell you that because they haven't really got a handle on it. But what they're addicted to is losing. They're addicted to that feeling of, I got to hustle up money right now. I don't have money to pay the rent because I just blew it. I don't have money for my car payment because I just blew it. And now I gotta pull this together. It's frightening when you see somebody that is that far in. There was a quarterback named Schlichter. I believe his first name was Art. And he was a college phenom that broke every record in the world in college, did absolutely amazing, and went to the pros. I met him in Oklahoma at the transfer center. And when they called out the guy's name, I literally went over to the phone banks and I called my dad, who was like the trivia master. And I said, hey, do you remember a ball player? And gave him the name. And he said, yeah. And immediately told me where this dude played, that he was a quarterback, that he got drafted, and that he was gone after like a season or something. He was gone because the man could not do anything but gamble. And he ended up blowing a career. And then, it just spiraled. I sat for about 8 hours and listened to this man's story. And in the course of that 8 hours, there was probably, I'm not exaggerating, 15 minutes where he talked about, combined, where he talked about hitting the big one, where all of a sudden he had, I had 150,000, one bet, because for him it was betting. He wasn't going to machines or anything like that. This man was either calling a bookie or going to casinos. And when the casinos dried up, he would call bookies. If he didn't have the money to walk into a casino, he was going to call gangsters. And he was going to place bets with money that he didn't have. In Las Vegas, that is a dangerous way to live. He had a job at a radio station talking about sports, and he just continued to crap every single thing away. And when I met him, he said the only thing that he has not lost was his NFL pension. And when he gets out, he's going to be old enough to actually get it. And I don't remember what he said it was, 70 grand a year or something like that. And I said, yeah, what's your plan? He goes, well, I could sit here and lie to you and myself, but I'm going to get out and I'm probably going to gamble. And he said, this time I'm just not going to break the law. If you lose, his brain doesn't know any other way. Our brain does not want to change. It doesn't, which is why the people who are really good at what they do, the people who are on top of the world, very often go into the ultimate depths of depression and very often end up on dope when they leave the spotlight, when they leave the top echelon of what they do. You're the best golfer in the world and you get injured and all of a sudden you're not the best golfer in the world and you sort of start falling off a little bit. And then you got to take 6 months off for a surgery. And the next thing you know, you're crashing your car right after a tournament on a handful of Loratab, or they're finding you parked on the street in front of your house with the door open to the car, pilled out, pill bottles on the floor. Man had all of the money in the entire world. But it's amazing how we can start to get uncomfortable in our own skin. And for a guy like that, or a guy like Michael Vick, who will look back and go, man, I had it. I had the entire world, but I needed to do a little bit more. And that little bit more cost me everything. There's some regret out there that you can be pretty solid in your recovery. You don't necessarily have to be frail in the beginning. It depends on how deep, that regret goes. And it depends on where you're at. I know people that are rock solid in their recovery for 4 years, and then something happens. And it's always something, right? You don't know what that something is, but something happens. And the next thing you know, they're back to where they started, for lack of a better way to put it. They're literally back to where they started. And it's a sad thing to watch, obviously. So there's a huge difference. Sorry, I'm just making sure that sometimes it's Linda. There's a huge difference between regret and guilt. You got to own your guilt. You have to. You gotta acknowledge the regret and then get the hell away from it. I can bring up the things that I should feel guilty for on a regular basis, but you don't hear me come in here and talk about every opportunity that I blew. There's just no reason for me to drudge that up. There isn't. It's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be good for my sobriety, and there is nothing I can do about it. Owning it doesn't do much. Honestly, it's a very non-productive thing. I have to own the stupid things that I've done. I don't need the cherry on top. I don't need that extra dose of, boy, wouldn't it have been great if I didn't? Those are the things you cannot change. That prayer they talk about, the serenity prayer, whether you believe in a higher power or not. You mean I'm not the only one? Morton, there's two of us. There's two of us. Thank you, Dennis. And it's the truth. I just watched this. I've watched this game drag a lot of people to a lot of really bad places. I've got one friend, and this is his Achilles heel. Because of the fact that he was someplace that close. He will relive that close moment until he ends up in a bottle. And he's been doing it for so long that if he had just said, you know what, screw it, that was really stupid, I blew it, now I need to get on with my life, he probably could have built a career just as big as the one that he screwed up. But instead, he likes to tell the world how close he was. I was that close. And usually he says it with a bottle in his hand. It doesn't help. It is a very unhealthy, exercise in sobriety. And the two emotions get confused, conflated. People are always talking about the two of them. They'll say, I feel really guilty. I lost this opportunity or that opportunity. And you're like, no. Feel guilty for getting high. Let's avoid all of that other crap. The opportunity stuff and all of that. Deal with it in the moment and then get rid of it. For real. It's going to come back up. You're going to see something on TV. There'll be a movie. There'll be something that dredges that emotion back up. And like I started this out, if it happens, treat it like a hand grenade. For real. Treat it like a very, very dangerous thing to your sobriety, because it is. So don't bottle it up and say, I don't really want to tell someone about this. I don't want to call the 5. You don't have to tell somebody about it. You just got to talk to somebody until that crap goes away. Of course, if there's somebody that you really trust, getting it out is probably really good for you. And that's solid advice for anything. You don't always have to share what's the problem with you when you call somebody who's part of your sobriety family. You can just call and say, I feel really uncomfortable in my own skin. I'm having a really bad day. Dude, it's one of those days. Hey, man, I need you. I need you now. Just talk to me, man. Talk to me. And that's not a big deal. That helps. That works. It gets it done. That said, if you're comfortable enough with somebody to say, let me tell you what's really going on, you know what'll happen? You'll work through it. Truthfully, you will work through it. And then at the end, you'll say, thank you, man. And 90% of the time, the person that you talk to, they're not going to solve anything. They're just going to say, uh-huh, and really, and stuff like that at the right time. They may ask one or two questions about, hey, is there, maybe you could explain that to me or explain this. Life is like an ox. Okay. CK, good to see you. So that's my advice, people. It's a rabbit hole. Regret is a rabbit hole. It's not like any other thing in sobriety. It really isn't. You start slipping, you're gonna fall. And when you fall, it's going to be one of those situations that that will threaten your serenity. And anything that threatens your serenity threatens your sobriety. Call somebody in the support family. If the tricks don't work, don't sit on the couch thinking about that movie that you should have showed up for. That starts happening. Get up. Get up. Go outside. Exercise. Do one of the things that we've talked about so often that is just a surefire way to get you off of whatever you're thinking about. I used to play with hand grenades. I'm not sure if you were in military service. The not real kind, but like the figuratively speaking, I did too. Every day for a really, really long time. A really, really long time. But this is one of the reasons that I beat the fact that it's important to have the 5 people that you're going to be talking to when you're in trouble. It's really good if these people understand you, if these people understand how you communicate, if you understand how they communicate. In a perfect world, if you're really thinking this through, right? Because you're tired of me saying this, but it needs to be said. The average person plans for a fishing trip far more than they do their recovery, even though it's probably the most important thing in their life. So you know what you're going to do. I'm going to do step 1. I'm going to do step 2. This is my bag of tricks. Working out's huge for me. That's something that gets the thought out of my mind. You can't have 2 thoughts in your mind at the same time. I don't care what anybody says. It's not possible. The human brain does not allow it. 2 thoughts can't occupy the same mind at the same time. They can't. If you are concentrating on one thing, you will not be able to be concentrating on another. Very, very difficult to do. So as you're going through that bag of tricks, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get that thought out of my mind, right? The perspective thing. How bad is this on a scale from 0 to 10, really, right? You go through all of the stuff that we talk about on here all of the time, right? If none of that works, you're going to start calling the 5 people on your list. If the first time you have ever spoken to that person is that phone call, you're probably not doing this right. It would be a pretty good idea if you have spoken to these individuals. They've heard your voice, you've heard theirs, right? You have a pretty good idea of who they are. You got to talk to them 4 times a day for 6 months. You don't even have to talk to them once a week, but it's a pretty good idea to talk to them before the ship is hitting the sand. So you can say, you know what? This doesn't come up very often. Honestly, it doesn't happen very often. When it does, it's usually because of this. This is what usually is my trigger. If I can't get it out of my head, which has happened to me in the past, then I may end up reaching out to you. You got any issues? Very often it works nicely back and forth. But the people that I will be calling, I've spent a good deal of time talking to all of these people. All of these people have a pretty good handle on the kind of things that get me going in the wrong direction. And for that reason, they're patient in how they deal with me when I'm starting to lose it. Well, when I start to lose it, for me, it is very difficult to get that back under control. I'm a snowball kind of guy. So if I let that snowball pick up speed, I'm in real trouble. I'm in very, very serious trouble. And truthfully, the worst for me would be regret. Kind of amazing that I've never done this show, but this is a difficult subject, and I think it's a difficult subject for a lot of people. Did I hear good night, M. Hunt? Good night, M. Hunt. When my daughter was born, she had jaundice. She was small and round and yellow. We call it. Seventh, that's absolutely awful. Yeah, that's a groaner. That really, really is a groaner. Just in case you're watching this and you cannot see the comment. Seventh said, when my daughter was born, she had jaundice. She was small, round, and yellow. We called her Melanie. Wow, man, they're getting worse. I can't even read the next one. See, now he's spiraling out of control. No, it is funny, Hobotographer. In fact, Seven's usually pretty consistently funny, But he definitely has there's a genre to his humor. Like if you were his kid, it would really be, talk about dad jokes. This guy's got a billion of them. His kids must have heard every single dad joke ever told twice. So other than this, people, I did want to kind of catch up. I had a tremendous day today. I really did. After last night was a struggle. You all know why. I was pretty open about it. And then I wanted to go over to the other platform where I could just sort of rage a little bit, and I thought it would be good for me. And it was. However, it was very difficult to get it. It wasn't like in the process. There were so many people that went live last night. So many people were going live. We're putting up videos. We're doing everything. They saw traffic last night like they've never seen. And they are where YouTube was 15 years ago, which is cool. I kind of like being at that part of a growth spurt. You know what I mean? Like it's fun to be at the beginning. However, you got to put up with some stuff. So it took me a long time. Like I would get a feed up, and right as I would go live, it would drop. And then, everybody's there sitting there waiting, and it was frustrating. It really was. But I didn't throw anything against the wall. I think I probably raised my voice a little bit. I did. But I didn't throw anything against a wall. But when I woke up this morning, it was one of those days that, you tread water and you feel like you're swimming upstream. And then every once in a while, you have one of those days where everything just kind of falls into place. Things that you've been working on, all of the things and you just feel like, you know what? I got way more done today than I have in the last couple of weeks. And today was one of those days. Dennis, I think that's a pretty good motto for life. He says, I don't take life for granted. I make each day count. And that's awesome. I try to live my life that way as well. Luke Skywalker, good to see you. I really try to live my life that way. There have been times in my life, obviously, that I didn't. The catalyst for me taking days for granted was always drugs. And it becomes real easy for days to become weeks, for weeks to become months, for months to become years, and for years to become decades. It is so unbelievable how fast 10 years can go by you. And I try to explain this to people. I get a lot of people that aren't ready to quit, and they'll stop by the boat. They dig it. They like the crew. They like the conversation. They're just not ready to quit. And you don't want to be a jerk, and you don't want to do the tough love thing, and you don't want to give them the speech about how rotten their life is going to be. But the piece of advice that I always try to give is, I remember a day where the thought of anything over the age of, say, 30, I couldn't even wrap my brain around. But the speed at which you go from 30 to 50 is staggering. Blows your mind. I was having a conversation earlier today with somebody. If you can remember back far enough, because this isn't an easy exercise. Honestly, it's not. But if you can remember back to your days in school, do you remember when summer vacation would start and you would head out of school happy as heck that the year was over, and you would start just playing, right? You had this time of doing nothing at all except playing, right? Then those days seemed to go on forever. Those summer vacations felt like 6 months. You look back on it now and you go, what was it? 8 weeks? Now, in my 50s, 8 weeks goes by so fast. And it's something I was thinking about because I do the watch shows, and I do them about every 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks they have between each one. So a summer vacation between each show. And man, they come so fast. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. The older you get, the faster that life seems to pick up speed. So while it's a little bit slower, man, make those days count. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you're in your 20s or your 30s, life is good. Knock who's ever at the wheel the hell out of that chair and take control back now. And you will be very pleased at how things begin to change. To this day, really, I still have yet to meet anybody that has said, I really, really want to be a drug addict. I've yet to meet anybody that's happy in their addiction. It's, and I don't think I ever will. I'm not going to be a 60-year-old meth head. Dennis, well done. And you know something? I have met 60-year-old addicts. There was a guy that, in fact, the guy that I probably did, the guy that was sort of my guy here in town was a Vietnam vet. He's a very, very old guy. When you turn 1 year old, that one represents 100% of your life. When you turn 50, that same year represents a small slice of your life. And it seems to go much faster. And it does. It does. Honestly, that I was doing something with on watches and on time. And there was some like weird mathematician that has an equation for this, truthfully. And there was a graph and everything else about, how much shorter it is. And I don't know whether he's doing it by perspective or by what, but honestly, there was a graph and it was insane. And I happened to be in a place where time was really dragging on while I was reading that. So it was different. Life goes fast. It does. It does. But, right? Dennis is like, wow. It's one of those profound thoughts that kind of, makes you think. That's good, though. Profound thoughts are good things. After 60, sometimes you forget how to tie your shoe. It's all right. It's what loafers are for, my friend. It's what loafers are for. My friend made it to about, I don't know if he hit 70. I don't think he made it to 70. He passed while I was incarcerated. And I this is not the people that he hung out with aren't the kind of people you call on telephones. You just go to a part of town where they are. And as much as I'm curious, there was nothing that was going to bring me to that part of town. So I don't know what took him. I would imagine it could have been old age. I mean, he really had worn himself out. He looked like he was about 60 years older than he was, but he had one of the biggest hearts. Honestly, one of the nicest people I ever met, as far as being concerned for others and things like that. Just couldn't get out of his own way, and he knew it. I think while he was overseas, he picked up that habit, and things that he saw made him uncomfortable in his own skin. And from that point forward, there was just, that was it. He was full steam ahead. I'm a slip-on shoe kind of guy. I am too, Dennis. I definitely prefer loafers. Flip-flop face, turquoise covering eyes. Nice. Lemonade, in case you're wondering. I am back on my lemonade kick. Dennis wears boots. You know what? I did, I think I've put cowboy boots on 4 or 5 times in my life. And I think for 3 or 4 of those, I was doing it just because I was going to fill them with something illegal. I would love to be able to wear them. But if you see me in cowboy boots, like you look at me and you go, I wonder why that dude's wearing cowboy boots. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't look like, it just doesn't, it doesn't work on me. You look at me and you think, there's something wrong with this picture. Why is that guy got on cowboy boots? Honestly, I think they look great on people. They look super out of place on me. I'm not a sock guy. I think it seems, see, this is, you remember me talking the other day about how they will do a study and then they will take things away from the study that may not be even close to true, but they manage to extrapolate that from whatever they want. So I'm looking at this right now and going, yep, addicts do not like socks. Do they still sell tassels? Oh, tassel weenie. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. I wear cowboy boots on occasion. You know what? With women, it's just different, I think. Weegens. There you go. There you go. I am a sock guy. See that? Shimmy blows the whole scientific thing we had going. And here I thought I really had this figured out. You thought I was a sock guy? No, you didn't. I think you're being funny. I seem to only be able to wear shoes with fingers in them. That's my brother. And he's not kidding. His shoes look like gloves, like each toe has a place. Yeah. Honestly, I think you don't need your toes separated by your shoes unless you're like a ninja or a flying Walenda, one of those people that walks on tight ropes between 2 buildings or something. I could see then wanting my toes out there doing this thing. But other than that, I don't see it. Full of Hope says, I love those finger shoes. Great for climbing. Now, you know what? Okay, 3 things. 3 things. They look like climbing shoes to me, and that makes sense. See, Full of Hope gets it. But that I can't see just wearing them around town. Holy monkey. Charles. Socks and sandals do not mix. Do you know something? Before we go, this is a fun one. I'm actually glad we got onto this. to this subject because this kind of fascinates me. So when we were growing up, if you wore socks with sandals, number one, you're going to get picked on, right? That was just one of those things that you really, really could get picked on for. Thank you, Noise Opera. Good to see you, brother. Appreciate you. It you just didn't wear socks with any of those kind of things. But the only thing worse is if you wore like black socks with tennis shoes, right? Because black socks back then were dress socks. So nobody would ever dream of putting on like a pair of white tennis shoes with black socks. Now everybody does that. For real. The millennial generation, they live in black socks with any kind of tennis shoes or whatever. And I am absolutely blown away. Every time I look at it, I think, oh man, they would have absolutely blown you away. My high school would have terrorized you for that. Growing up on Cape Cod, we always got a laugh when tourists would wear socks and sandals. T. Prada, you know what? I don't know why I didn't know this, but you're from Cape Cod. What a beautiful part of the country. Absolutely a beautiful part of the country. I'm a plumber and I wear work boots every day. Face palm. Oh, face, pink tears. You know what, man? Work boots. I think I spent 5 years wearing work boots every single day. And I mean every single day. We didn't have an option. Cultivate Kindness says, I grew up barefoot. In the summer, you could not put shoes on my feet if you tried. Not if you tried. And I could run top speed through anything barefoot. I'm dead serious. Like the bottom of my feet were like, you couldn't tell that I didn't have shoes on. I could run on anything. And we had a driveway that was like pea stone. And, you know, we had a lot of land. So you'd run from on the grass and I would hit that rocks. Johnny would jam on the brakes and I would just run across it. Never, ever had any problems. My brother says Tommy could run across glass as a kid. It's true. The bottom of my feet he had feet like a hobbit. Minus the hair on top. That's why when I saw LA Beast break that record for walking on Legos. I don't know if you've ever seen that, people, but LA Beast holds the world record for the longest distance walking on Legos. You know how you step on one of your kids' Legos and then you say bad words? Okay. Thank you. Mark, I absolutely agree with you. Nobody should ever put hands on a woman. They shouldn't. And the story should not. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the back to those days of summer too. You know, those days that just went on forever. But I guess using Johnny's math, it makes sense, right? You know, you're 16, and that's the amount of time we've spent on this planet. Taking 8 weeks off is a much larger chunk of that, right? The pavement melted into our feet. I used to like putting my hands on men who put their hands on women. I want to tell you something. There are different parts of the country where inside the prison system, that is somewhat accepted. And it never really made a lot of sense to me. In the vast majority of the country, it is something that is very, very frowned upon on the inside. And those people tend to be treated really, really poorly. I was a barefoot girl until I moved into our current house. Wow. Your dad used to play tennis. Oh, barefoot. That's crazy. Good Lord. 7. That is absolutely awful. Thank you, Noise Op. I really appreciate you, brother. I remember the pavement melting the bottom of my feet so bad. One time I couldn't walk for a week. It happens. But has anyone else noticed that kids these days are wearing black socks and white leather sneakers, tennis shoes? And that's the style? Like they think white socks are goofy in shoes like that? Socks and sandals equals nerd. No question. I'm sorry. No question. 7th son. I'm going to read this just because it's so awful. And I think I'll then go for the cat in the basket. Our family has a genetic predisposition to diarrhea. It runs in our genes. This thing on. I wear white socks with, I just saw you. I wear white socks with black shoes, like Michael Jackson sometimes. Luke Skywalker, that's different. That's completely different. Elwood Blues also did that. That's less geek and more style. There's a lot of, Buddy Holly. There's a lot of people throughout history that wore black shoes with white socks. A lot of people who were very cool who did that throughout history. I agree with that, Ladybug. I agree with that. Charlie Mullins, thank you for being you. Thank you for being you, Charlie. Very, very great guy. He's the most consistent dude on the planet. You can set your watch. Hey, Greg, good to see you, Greg. I hope that you're doing well, bud. You're always in our thoughts. True story. Hope things are getting better. Okay. At this point, peeps, do me a favor. Hit the like button on the way out. And if you're ever over on the other platform, the like button is called a rumble. They keep very close track of the rumbles. Good things happen when you get a bunch of them. Don't ask me what, because I truthfully don't quite understand it. But the idea is to get as many of those as you possibly can. So if you're ever over on that platform, take the time. The nice thing is you don't even have to it's right there. Just get over there and looks like a boxing glove. Give me one. Give me one. Alrighty, peeps. You know the drill. Tomorrow. Ouch. Tomorrow, I will be back in the morning. And we will see you people then. I am Tommy. And this here, that's a cat in a basket. What do you say, squirrel? Yeah, good kitty. We've been practicing that all afternoon. All right, good night, peeps.